Good afternoon, Mr. Kylie here with Martial Arts America. Today's date is April 27th. This is Monday's class. This is your junior black belt kickboxing class. All right, feet together, bow, shake your hands. Goal of today is to get very functional with all the techniques, so not just learn all the combinations, but also kind of go in depth of how to do combinations properly and why, and then also break down each individual technique, especially all the defensive movements with your blocks and your parries and your scoops, and then your ducks and your bobs and your weaves and your feints. There's a lot of different moves to break down. Good, we're going to reach down. Not only go into how to do them correctly, but how they should feel, how they should look, what they should move into next. Come back up, spread your feet, stretch down. Again, try to transfer all the weight to the backs of your legs, so you're kind of leaning your body forward. This should make your stretch a little bit more intense. Over to the left side. To the right side. Bend your left knee. Switch. Sit all the way down. This is also kind of the culmination of the challenge week we had about a month ago. We said if we stretch every day for about a calendar month, how much more flexible can we get after that month? This is the last week kind of working up to it. Not this last week of stretching every day, hopefully, but it's kind of just to check in. It's a check up. It's a check mark. You kind of see where we are, how much more flexible hopefully you guys are if you've been consistent and been doing it every day. Switching forward. Put your left leg out, stretch down. Make sure you're not bending that knee. Switch sides. Both legs out in the front, stretch down. Both legs out. To the middle. And again, we're trying to increase your full split stretch from this point, but most students try to pull their leg back, right? But a lot of times they get so focused on pulling this leg back or pulling this leg back that what they don't notice is they go like this, and on the other side of their body it's going like this. And their body's just kind of turning itself. So make sure that instead try to keep this leg where it is, but then instead of pulling this leg back or getting someone to pull it back, focus more on pushing this leg outwards. Keep this leg directly where it is, but if I push this leg out, it will naturally make both legs kind of push themselves forward and keep your stretch. And again, trying to work very much so on your posture. So instead of being here and your body kind of crowding upon itself and falling forward, try to sit up nice and tall. By pushing, you want to kind of work on, it's kind of a chain reaction. I want to kind of sit up over my hips. I want to push my hips forward a little bit. And then I want to pull my shoulders backwards. So I'm not rolling forward. So my chin is up, which will then hopefully pull my chest outwards. Will then hopefully pull my hips forwards. Everything is coming to the front. And then from here, keep your toes rolled backwards. Reach over. One more time. Other side. Reach forward. And I'll kind of break the news to you guys. The new challenge this week is your sliding split challenge. So it's kind of, again, a culmination of your full splits week. So that basically means learning, doesn't necessarily mean you can do a full split, but just a unique way to slide into your split stretch, or a unique way to practice your split stretch, whether it's taking socks and doing it on a hardwood floor and then walking your feet out, or some just kind of you can get creative and kind of have fun with it. But that's going to be one of the challenges. We can be able to not necessarily slide into a split. If you can, that's great, but just find a unique way to practice your full split stretch. Okay, slide back, pull your legs in. We stretch out the backs of your legs. We're going to stretch out the tops of your legs. lean over, pull your leg behind you, lean backwards. Don't do both at the same time. That can kind of a little W stretch. That can be kind of put some extra stress on your knees. That may not hurt now, but will hurt later. And so I don't want that to happen. So we're not going to do that. And then also, if you lean backwards, if you lay backwards but to get this, so some students just go straight back onto the ground. But if in order to do that, you have to arch your back and your knee comes up. So I see a lot of students are like this, and they're like, I can do it. This is just hurting you. Okay, so instead, that's how my knee came up. You want to keep the knee flat. Instead, you want to find that hip muscle, the one you use to round kick into front kick with here, and you want to instead just push it forward. You will naturally feel more of a stretch in your leg if you do that. When people try to lay back on the ground, they're trying to feel this stretch. Okay, that's that they're trying to do that in order to make it stretch more. You can do all of that without having to do all of that, okay, just by pushing your hip forward more. And I actually like doing it this way better because you get used to feeling your body more. That's part of the benefit of doing all these things is you're learning what's called proprioception, which is a very big word you don't have to remember, but it basically just means you can feel what your body is doing. You understand kind of where all the little parts of what what the actual muscles are doing and how to make them work more and how to make them work correctly. By learning this, it helps prevent injury a lot. Because a lot of times we end up hurting ourselves doing actions or playing sports or other things just because we don't know what happens when our body gets tired, or we don't know the chain reaction of one thing leading into the next thing. And so by learning how to do all these little stretches correctly and kind of learning if I push my hip forward, it stretches this more. If I lean back, it does that more. And by learning, what A then turns into B. I can't say this right. Okay, kind of learning how to make A go into B, go into C, kind of what that chain reaction does. You can learn how to not do that, how to not end up hurting yourself just because you realize what step one is going to then lead into later. Ow, good. You may get a cramp in your foot. Owie. But that's the main reason, especially in the black belt class, that we try to teach things slowly. Isn't just to get the moves right. Okay, it's not trying to be boring, but it's trying to go back and make sure your body and your brain there's this thing called your mind muscle connection that you're trying to fill that gap between kind of feeling what's going on within your body, which a lot of times is a lot harder than we think it is. Okay. So we're up and moving. Okay, so what we're going to work on first is kind of breaking down a lot of the defensive movements. I'm actually going to put my gloves on so you can get a kind of look as if you're working with somebody else. So make sure you have your gloves on if you don't already. Maybe you guys have done such a wonderful job. We've got a lot of positive feedback from a lot of the black belt parents. All the ones that I saw during the Zoom meetings, I was super genuinely impressed with how well you guys have come learning, especially those second and third combinations, because we didn't really learn those in class. We kind of practiced them like one time. And the second one we kind of practiced a little bit, but the third one was completely up to you guys. And we did that all through here, and you guys rocked it. Okay, both variations. You rocked, and you went back and remembered combinations 1, 2, and 3. The mitt holding was strong. Parents that are working with their kids at home, thank you so much. That's going really well. So from that standpoint, I genuinely couldn't be more impressed with you guys. I'm very happy with it. So that makes me really happy. So I want to make sure we can kind of go back now, and not go back, push forward. I don't like using the word go back because that makes it seem like we forgot something. But we can kind of, the next evolution is making sure, especially from a defensive standpoint, because we spend most of our time doing the strikes because they're a lot of fun, is making sure that we know how to do the defensive movements. We know how they should feel. We know what they're defending against. Okay, because if I just teach you how to do defensive movements but not what to do them against, then it's kind of not really, it's kind of having all these puzzle pieces and not really know what the puzzle is supposed to look like. All right, so we're going to break them down. Okay, so from here, we have our basic defensive movements with your head work first. Okay, it's always better if you can, to work on dodging with your head and getting your head out of the way. It's good to know how to block and do all those things, and to cover. But if you can, one of my favorite ways to block is to not get hit at all. It's just to not be there, right? To dodge or to move out of the way, specifically in this instance, because we're assuming our attacker is bigger, right? And so if they're too close to us and they're bigger, blocking is good, but even sometimes covering or blocking or shielding can still end up in you getting hurt if there's that much of a size difference. So I want to make sure that if they're too big, that if they swing, you're just going to not be there and not get hit while still trying to stay safe and covered, right? Those being your slips, those being your bobs, and what's called your feint, okay? And so we're going to work these slips first. Okay, slips dodge any wild attack that kind of comes from a straightforward line. So if it's any straightforward line here, that's mainly what you're going to slip. All right, we're going to kind of mimic it together. So I'll show you some of the defenses, and we're going to work it together. So like you're standing behind me in class, and I'll show you from multiple angles so you can kind of see what it should look like and feel like. Okay, so your slips again from here. Notice you guys did a great job of turtling your body and getting everything shelled up nice and tall. Okay, when you slip, you do want to kind of lean to that side. You want to lean onto the foot, okay, that you're going. Your hands stay up. And so if they throw a jab, so if they throw that jab with their left hand, good, I would then slip good to the right, because I always want to try to go to what's called the dead side. Okay, not dead as in you're dead. Dead as in there's nothing over there. Good. It's not live, means it's active, right? This is the inactive side. And so from here, where my feet are, if they throw a left-handed jab here, good, you can see this is the dead side to the right. So I'd rather go that way. So as the jab comes, I just move my body over to the side. It's not exaggerated. I'm more so trying to, if I took a picture right when I did this properly, right as I'm dodging the punch, it should look like I'm trying to put their hand on my shoulder. So from here, and say if they're punching me in the nose, I'm just moving my body off to the side, off that center line. But I'm also not going backwards. I'm going over to the side. Can I show you from the side now? This is where this angle is really helpful. Is again, I'm not going here because that gets you caught. I'm going here. I'm leaning onto this foot, not going directly sideways. I'm not a little teapot, short and stout. Good. I'm leaning over to the side. Hands are staying up. Good. And I'm leaning onto this leg. And why am I leaning forwards? Not falling forward. I'm not exaggerating, but why am I going more to the front? Because I'm trying to get a little bit closer to them. Good. I'm trying to keep my balance by leaning onto my center mass here, and then I'm also trying to get a little bit closer to them so I can then counter strike. All right. So again, the way to block or to shield with a slip of a jab is to go onto your back leg, onto your right leg. Good. If they throw the cross side, their right hand, you of course would go onto this side. Good. And so you're here. I'm trying not to punch the mic. Sorry. This mic is not working with me. Good. So you're here. Just gonna put it down there. And so it's either 1 or it's 2. So again, if I throw a jab, you will then slip good to the outside here. If I throw a cross, you will then slip to here. You can go to the inside. So if you threw a slip and you went this way on my cross, if you ended up over here, it's a lot better off than actually getting hit. But you also have to be aware they have the other arm ready to rock. So you guys have to be ready. It's ideal again to slip the proper way. But if you slip to the wrong way, just be ready to keep moving from there. All right. And so I have my right side slip against the jab. I have my left side slip against the cross. And your bobs and your weaves defend against wild punches, which honestly, in more of a outside of here standpoint, if you're defending against someone that's not trained in most martial arts, they're probably going to have more of a wild swing. They're just going to swing their arm as hard as they can because they're used to throwing a ball, right? They're not used to throwing a punch. And so their body's going to make this wild type movement. So that's why learning bobs, good, and weaves are very helpful because they dodge against those peripheral attacks. They dodge against the hooks and they dodge against wild swings. So your bob and your weave, making sure you do kind of move your foot just a little bit off that center line. So from here, I'll back up a little bit. You're going to step and go. Go ahead, straight from the back. You're going to step underneath. Your feet come with you. So it's a slight one. Boom. As your body goes underneath, good. It's not an exaggerated movement. Good. Honestly, you should kind of almost feel the wind from the arm or even lightly feel the arm good on the hair on the top of your head. Good. Just because that keeps you tight enough to the person that you can counterattack without actually getting hit. Okay, in this case, if you just drop straight down, if you go too low, good, then you're not in a good position to counterattack, and you may be stuck there with the person's other hand coming. And so it's very important to get underneath, good, and come back up to that raised position. So whatever side I'm going, slight step over that foot as my body is rolling, and this hand comes up. Same thing back this way. Good. That is completely dependent on what arm they're swinging with. You want to go you want to cross underneath it, okay, so that you're dodging it now twice as fast. If they swing with their right arm, I bob to the left. I tuck my chin down. You guys have done a great job of kind of keeping that very tightened up position while keeping good posture. So my back is still straight, but my shoulders are rolled. Good. This isn't breaking posture. This is breaking posture. Right? I'm still here. I'm just covered. And I'm keeping my chin down and keeping my eyes up. Good. And I'm coming under. And then the same thing, coming under. My hands aren't going down. I'm not here. Everything stays tight to my body just in case, for whatever reason, I don't get down low enough or fast enough. Okay? So those are the main two ones there. Okay, the last one and the trickiest one is called the feint. So I have 2 bobs and I have 2 slips. Okay, your feint is where you go straight backwards. This one is more of a countering technique. So I would feint if I wanted to quickly then follow with like my jab or my cross. And so this comes off of somebody's, specifically just somebody's jab, right? You wouldn't want to do this against their cross because that has extra reach because it has that extra pivot. Okay, so you would specifically only do this on somebody's jab. You would counter if you notice they're just peppering out a jab. And if I want to then time that jab properly, if they are kind of relaxed with their jab, especially if it's this type motion. Good, because you got to think if somebody's jabbing, good, if I jab, good, yes, you can't see where my head is, but I also can't see you. And so as I'm jabbing, I'm trying to strike you, so you're kind of hidden from my view for that split second. So if you happen to be faking, I don't know if you're leaning backwards. So as my hand is coming back to here, if you follow it back, good. If you're coming forward at the same moment my hand is coming back, it can catch them off guard. And so from here, the way you feint is by simply taking my normal stance. I push my back foot further behind me. Good. And I actually want to lean my body backwards. I want to get my shoulders behind my hips, which normally, agreed, is a very big no-no in this case. Because what does it look like? If I just scoot close to the camera, good, and you can't see my lower body, and I just go like this, it looks like what? It looks like I'm off balance, right? And so in this case, I look off balance from the waist up. From the waist down, I'm very balanced because my back leg has now kicked behind me, catching my body. So a lot of times what this does is this one, if I look off balance, now the attacker's either going to extend their jab just out of range, or they're going to follow with a very big strike because they think that I'm falling and they can catch me on the way down with a strike. And so I'm trying to bait them, good, into over-exaggerating their move so I can then counter, right? So from here, that's simply just here. My chin is still tucked. I'm not here, still hiding my chin. Hands are still up, but I'm here. And a lot of times what will happen is the jab will come, and then it'll go like a yo-yo, and as it goes away, you then, because your foot's behind you, you can then just push off of that foot and drive your body forward with a strike. You don't have to throw your jab, because your jab is for what? It's for finding range. It's for distracting. Right now, they're distracting themselves with their own jab. And so all I do is I go straight to my backhand, and I go from here, I go 1, and I push, and I step. Good. 2, and I follow them in. Good, so that's kind of where that would come to play when working some of our combos and trying to judge distance. If they're just peppering their jab, but they're not putting a lot of thought into it, then as they do it, you would 1, 2, and you follow with your backhand. Okay, so we worked on slips, we worked on feints, we worked on our bobs and weaves. So what we're going to do now is I'm going to be the attacker, and I'm going to throw my jabs and my crosses. I'm going to throw my front hand and backhand hook. And I want you to try to read it, and then I want you to react to it, either slipping to the left, slipping to the right, bobbing to the left, or bobbing to the right. If you want to mix in your feint backwards every time I throw a couple of jabs, you can, but try to mainly for right now stick with the slip to the right. Okay, so again, if I throw a jab, you would then slip to the right. Good, that would be this one. Okay, if I throw a cross, you would slip to the left. If I throw a lead hook here, then you would scoop and you would bob this way underneath my arm. If I throw a rear hook that way, you would bob and you would duck that way. Ready? Stay with me. So what do you do now? Slip and then come back. In each one, you always want to come back to that middle position, to that ready, guarded position. What are you probably noticing that a lot of times, especially if they're not like a trained martial artist, most people are going to exaggerate the technique a little bit because they're going to try to add too much power into it. They're not going to be thinking much about combinations, but more so about doing as much damage as they can off that one individual strike, right? And so what you'll notice a lot of times is a pre-motion. Okay, what we spend most of our time doing when working our jabs and our crosses and all of our techniques, honestly, is making it go from point A to point B. There's no backwards motion, right? I don't want to rear back. Why not? It makes it stronger, but why don't I want to have that negative motion? Negative as in, because it makes it stronger, but it also takes longer, right? Doesn't matter how strong the strike is if it never makes it to the target. Okay, it just wants to go as fast as it can in a straight line. So what you learn to look for are those subtle negative motions, because they're big red flags on what's coming, right? Because at this point, if I'm just standing here, you don't know if I'm going to jab or a cross or lead hook or rear hook. And again, think of it now if in we're right next to each other. We're not social distancing. We're sparring, right? We're really close to each other. You don't have time to guess wrong, right? In this case, you don't have time to be wrong and really diagnose what's happening. So you have to give yourself as few options as possible, right? Instead of me trying to figure out which of those 4 strikes they're going to throw, I need to figure out which one are they going to throw, right? So from here, what you look for first, okay, instead of thinking about one of 4, is it going to be jab, cross, lead hook, or rear hook? If I can figure out at least what side it's coming from, then I have a 50-50 shot. I really increase my chances of figuring out what's happening. Okay, so what you'll look for first are whichever way their shoulders roll. Whichever way their shoulders roll, it's going to come from that side. So if I'm here and you see them buck to the left side, if I whoop like this, then I'm loading this arm. So I can either throw a jab or I can throw a lead hook. Okay, so if you see their body roll to this side, now I know I either have to bob that way or I have to slip that way. It's one of the two. And from there, you look at just where their shoulders, you're just going to follow the pathway of the hand. If you see here and then the hand starts coming straight, you know to get to the outside. If you see here and the hand extends out, you know to bob underneath it. Same idea here. If you see their body roll to their backside here, then you know it's either 1 or it's 2. So it kind of breaks it down and it really diagnoses things with a lot easier of kind of figure out what strike is which. Again, it's still, you start to figure out which one, is it jab or is it hook, or is it cross or is it hook, but knowing what side's coming will make you so much faster. Okay, so again, kind of pay close attention to what side I'm throwing. Good, it was here, there's my jab, hopefully you slipped. There's my cross, hopefully you slipped. Boom, very good. Boom, there it is. Now I'm going to mix them up a little bit, okay? Still going to throw that negative motion in there. Okay, so hopefully I hope I wasn't too close to the camera too. But those are the kind of things that it's important to have the combination work down, and we'll rock that again in a second to close off class just to make sure it stays strong. But it's also very important to know from a dodging standpoint, just easier ways to break it down. Because a lot of times it's not the technique that ends up being the hard part. It's how do I implement it? How do I use it now? Good, and how do I fit in? And sometimes, especially now when we're learning a new technique, if you get taught a new technique and then you go to use it and then it doesn't work right away, a lot of times you really feel like, this one's just not for me, right? Because we talk about in sparring a lot, I'm going to teach you a lot of different techniques. Some will be for you, some won't be for you. Okay, a lot of times, without getting off on a tangent, a lot of times every move is for everybody. It really just ends up on preference. But especially with these, because the distance is so much closer, okay, it's going to be a lot harder to get the timing right in the beginning. You have to see a lot more repetition and trust what your eyes are seeing. At first, you have to be taught how to see it, how to know what technique is coming, and then trust it. And then from there, it's how to apply it. Okay, so again, if it's not making sense as much right now, good. If it doesn't feel like it's working right away, good. So like if your parents are doing, when we do the combination work, if they're doing the swing and they actually caught you a couple times, good. Or if they do, they're straightforward and you didn't get your shell up fast enough. It's not that you're doing it wrong. It's not that you're too slow, they're too fast. It's just you have to learn the technique, how to not hesitate with the technique, how to trust it, and then what your eyes are supposed to be seeing while you're doing it. Right, so we're going to finish off with the combinations. I'm going to face this way so we can all do them together. I'm just going to follow along with me. So combination number 1A, which was the jab, cross, hook, cross, right? And then jab number 2 is replace the cross with the round kick. So 1B and go, jab, cross, hook, round kick. Little things I saw with a lot of us when I was watching the videos. We have a really strong hook, but you guys know the hook is coming, and so you're waiting. So a lot of times you're going one, start from this view. You're going 1, 2, and we're kind of loading up that hook and swinging from down here. Make sure it's 1, this hand's up, this hand's tight to your body, and then as this hand comes back, this elbow flares. There's the hook. So you're trying not to preload this. So if you're working at home, that's a very good thing. If you have a parent or a sibling that's working with you, practice that combination a couple times and tell them to don't tell them anything. Ask them to pay close attention to that, because sometimes it's hard to feel for those mistakes. Again, not 1, 2. 1, 2, 3. Okay, so we're on 1C, which is the jab, cross, hook, uppercut. Good. Keeping the opposite hand up. Jab, cross, hook, dip. Boom. That went so much better, by the way. A little drop in the roll. I was really happy with that. Okay, and then number 2 real fast was the jab, cross, shell. Good. Parents, great job smacking your kids on the shell. That went really well, by the way. So 1, 2, shell, cross, round kick, keep the hands up, hook, cross, switch, round kick, and then 3 with both variations, 3A and 3B. So it's the double jab, cover, cross, hook, round kick, and now faking the round kick to throw the high step round on the left side. Double jab, cover, cross, hook, step, high round kick on the backside. All right? Make sure that stuff stays strong. Again, work the simple bobs and the weaves and the slips. If you have somebody at home to kind of work the pads around to you, whether it's straight at you or at an angle, and you're kind of just bobbing and getting close, definitely start slow, start smooth, and then as you get more confident, also work it in order first so you kind of predict what's coming, because right now we're just trying to get, again, the muscle-mind connection. We're trying to get your eyes to see what's supposed to be coming, fast enough and often enough to make it a reaction, make it a habit, not something you're having to think about. And then after that, you can have them go at random a little bit. All right? Good work today. Bow. You are dismissed. Ooh. Almost forgot. Black Belt quote of the week. Do or do not. There is no try. If you can put in the comments who said that, I'll give you a high five through the camera. Do or do not. There is no try. It's one of my favorite quotes.